Welcome back to Screen Love Affair. I'm Brandon, and today we're talking about Forbidden Fruits. I saw a lot of early hype for this movie, and I don't know if that played a part in how I felt about it, but seeing that it had such a high Rotten Tomatoes score going into the opening weekend, I was definitely hyped, and I don't know if it fully lived up to my expectations. Now, this was a movie that was on my radar because I'm a big Lily Reinhart fan. I've been a huge fan ever since seeing her as Betty in Riverdale, and I just thought the vibe and everything that was shown in the trailer was going to really land for me, and I thought, wow, this is going to be kind of like an instant girl boss mall cult classic type movie. And the movie definitely tries to be, but I don't think it fully works for me. So let's get into it. This is going to be a brief spoiler-free discussion for the most part, and maybe some spoilers at the end. So right off the hop, just so you know how I feel, on our heartometer scale, I would say that it was kind of a meh, which is like right in the middle. I didn't dislike it. I didn't think it was bad, but I definitely don't think I liked it enough to say I liked it or loved it. It definitely felt like it was trying to be a cult classic without ever really getting to the heights. Without giving anything away off the cuff, I would say that it didn't go hard enough in some of the ideas and motifs that it was going for. There wasn't a ton of gore or a ton of like provocative nudity, which I thought it would do. There is some, but definitely not like the thing you remember the most. Unfortunately, the thing you might remember the most is kind of some of the logic gaps or leave you with some questions as to like why certain characters have certain motivations. I think the weakest part of this was probably more so in the script than anything else. I think all the actresses did a great job. Pretty funny moments here and there sprinkled in, but the movie did get a little repetitive and unfortunately just didn't really hook me. I was hooked at the intro. I thought there's some good little comedy bits, visual gags. There's a license play at the start that kind of makes you laugh. All in all, like again, the vibe was good, but the story not so much. To summarize the story and what I think it was, I feel like I'd have to say it's a movie about women who are named after fruits. That's a big part of the story. They all work at a high-end kind of women's fashion boutique store called Free Eden. And it's hinted that there might be some occult aspect to the business, or at least the women that work there. The ringleader is Apple, played by Lily Reinhart, as I mentioned, and she does a great job, again, just being a more dynamic and far more like interesting character than I was expecting, because I just saw her in this movie called American Sweatshop, and it was a decent streaming flick, but the whole movie is her basically being a content moderator for a social media platform, watching like horrendous Instagram reels of people who don't necessarily live at the end of those videos, or terrible crimes are committed. So it's her just reacting going, oh my God, that's terrible, or oh, every like 2 minutes. So not necessarily the most engaging movie. So seeing Forbidden Fruits where she gets to chew the scenery a little bit, act like a crazy witch, I thought that was fun. As mentioned, and it's kind of given away in the vibe of the trailer and whatnot, this movie is going in the same vein as something like Mean Girls meets The Craft. It's actually filmed in the same mall as Mean Girls, the Sherway Gardens. So that's here in Toronto, Etobicoke. I'm pretty thrilled that I get to talk about a Toronto movie. If you really want to hear more about the behind the scenes and the making of the movie, we're going to have a podcast episode that's a little different coming out this week, where I discuss it with my friend Bridget, who got to be the second camera assistant. So she was there for the whole filming process, clapping the slate board for it. And I think that's a fun discussion I'm really excited to share with you guys. But to talk about the movie, though, it felt like this was a perfect nostalgia 2000s Tubi hidden gem. And I love a Tubi movie lately. But it just never reached those heights. The vibe of the movie focusing on this mall and it's 2025, I thought was a neat choice because malls aren't really a thing as they used to be. I feel like a stronger version of this movie maybe would have taken place in the early 2000s, especially when we're seeing this big resurgence of kind of early 2000s nostalgia. Because yeah, like what is a mall now? How many people go to malls that frequently? And have this like culty, cliquey friend group. Like it seemed a little unrealistic in today's day and age, but I get what they're going for. I think to review this movie accurately, and that's probably why a lot of you are tuning into this, I do have to spoil it. So this is your spoiler warning. So my big issues come down to kind of how they close the loop, as I was saying. They don't really do well with the theme of women supporting women, in my opinion, as a man. I get that. It's like how many scenes we're going to have the women having this interpersonal conflict, talking to each other, but not resolving it. Our protagonist, Pumpkin, saying, she doesn't believe in women supporting women. And then she's kind of proven right with the way the movie wraps up, where our protagonist dies after revealing that Apple is her sister. And they have the big drawn out fight in the fountain. It just kind of fell flat, especially when it's like she spends a good chunk of the movie and a lot of the scenes stringing together are her trying to convince the other women of their worth and their value and their autonomy. And it never really goes anywhere because they basically all end up dying and still being kind of like wishy-washy if they believe in the witch magic or the power of the occult that's established. So it just felt really soft to end in that way. And I feel like most other movies that would have been better and more cult classic would have been like having them gain the autonomy, maybe choosing Pumpkin to be the coven leader or breaking away from the coven structure. But again, it doesn't really do that. It doesn't seem like it's interested in exploring any of that stuff it's set up. So on that emotional level, I didn't really find it to click for me. And I would say on a visual level, because I keep saying the vibe was great, they do have some full frontal nudity, which I thought was a nice treat over halfway through the movie. It's not like that's my main draw here, but I would say that I was expecting a little bit more sexual provocative stuff going on, considering the plot was so thin. And ultimately, what comes with nudity is gore, and they do go gory near the end. There's some straight up scenes from Final Destination that I really like. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. There's that elevator scene near the end. Really good, really like cringe inducing, like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that energy. But it's a little, too little too late, honestly. So it sucks because I wanted to have a glowing review for this, but I couldn't find my way in narratively or with the characters. Anything that was flashy and very, stylistic didn't feel like it really came into full effect till the end. There was a few narrative choices that I didn't think worked either, as far as like motivations. Kind of the fundamental to any character is why they are doing what they're doing, where they're at. When they set it up so clearly that these women are being kind of manipulated or being strung along by the ringleader, Lily Reinhardt as Apple, like, well, why are they this way? And at least with Cherry, you kind of get it because they establish her backstory, her lack of family, her lack of self-worth. Some of the funniest jokes are when she's being like obviously belittled with therapy speak, being like, you've got real main character energy right now, babes. Like very kind of like contemporary Gen Z. And I think that worked. But again, with the payoff being that like she just had no good free will to put to use to, change the structure of the story or her character arc. And she probably gets the closest thing to a really fully realized arc, because she does eventually confront Apple, but there's not like a happy ending, and not like you need that, but it doesn't really land because it's just kind of like, oh, you just grew a backbone moments before you exited the movie. So, there's stuff like that. And even the character of Fig, I thought was probably the most relatable and down to earth of the group. And similar enough, she's got like a degree in like astrophysics, and she's working at the mall. She has a boyfriend, which is kind of against the girl code that they established. No, she seems to be like the most level-headed one, but she also doesn't seem to clue in or find the autonomy that I thought they were gearing up to give her, or like have her kind of fulfill this natural arc of the movie. And like each character who you want to like or buy in or understand to make the jokes land or make the story feel a little bit more fleshed out didn't. It was a little bit of a bummer. Our protagonist, it's very obvious she's got some sort of secret agenda the whole movie. You can see it kind of coming a mile away when it's like, oh, Lily Reinhardt is her long-lost sister, and she's doing this job to get close to her or to get her confession that she killed her dad. They, I guess, have the same dad who had an affair in two separate families. Again, in 2025, I don't know what economy supports being able to have two secret families. I guess he treated Lily Reinhardt's family worse, so she was the vindictive, poisoned one. There's, again, this theme that's touched on of like generational family trauma, but it just feels so service level that it was just like, let's get some buzzwords in there about family trauma to make this pop, and it didn't pop for me. I have another handful of nitpicks I thought was kind of funny. Was the pivotal plot device is the Barbie of the movie, Jane Doe. It was like this Barbie stand-in where she has all these career paths, and one of them's like a, private eye spy investigator, where she's got binoculars. And apparently it's like a 4K recording device, which it doesn't really look like. So I can see how they tricked the characters in the movie universe to not thinking it was a recording device. And she was secretly gathering this evidence for their big takedown of Free Eden, or as this like ringleader of the occult witch sales associate group. There's a moment where they show the doll and it's got a big glowing red chess piece. Like it's obviously recordings. And there's a moment where they kind of set up that she has to manually hit record on her phone, and it's like a life or death situation. When is she doing this? Because if it would be pretty obvious it was recording. Just seemed a little odd, or a little, again, like just thin or not super well thought out. Just a nitpick, because narratively the structure of this movie was its weakest point. So all that said, I would just say that this is a fun time for the most part if you're maybe streaming this, but seeing it in theater as a dedicated audience goer, it definitely lacked a little bit of meat to latch onto. And it felt like there's some missed opportunities and some moments where they could have done a little bit more with it. And I just kind of wish that I resonated more because I think the DNA of like a fantastic modern mall movie or a cult teen girl movie was there, but they just didn't quite click for me. So I guess that kind of summarizes everything. It's a bit of a weird one. I really wish it delivered more on the initial concept and followed through some of the themes and the visuals that felt so strong early in the movie. I do think it's worth checking out if you got nothing better to see. I know the new Super Mario movie's probably gonna take up a lot of screenings and take this one out of the theaters pretty soon, especially on the Easter holiday weekend. But if you like this review, please let us know. It's a bit of a new format for us. And if you want more Forbidden Fruits content, we have an interview with my friend Bridget coming out on Tuesday, which is going to cover kind of the behind the scenes what it's like working on this movie. It's a 4-week shoot here in Toronto, Canada at the Sherway Gardens Mall. And I found that to be a little bit more fascinating than the actual movie itself, was hearing kind of what it was like to shoot a movie in a mall in today's day and age while you have like active people shopping in the background as you have 100 cast and crew just making a movie. To me, that's fascinating as a film technician. So please check that out. And yeah, thanks for tuning in.